What's going on, guys? This is Bo. Welcome to the Man Review, and today I'm going to tell you what I mean by EV school. See, I drive a Ford F-150 Lightning. If you're interested in that truck, there's a review about it. I've had a Tesla Model 3 in the past. I've had multiple EVs. My wife's had a Rivian. It's always interested me, but we end up going back to gas cars most of the time. And the reason for that is because, first of all, for her, it was EV school. She was not willing to go to EV school. Now, when I say the words EV school, you're probably thinking like traditional school. Like, is there an EV school? What do you mean by EV school? What I mean is you have to learn a lot of things you don't have to learn with a traditional gasoline vehicle. And a lot of marketing when it comes to EVs is really just incorrect. It's correct in certain aspects, but let's take range, for example. Number one thing people ask when they find out you have an electric vehicle or they're interested in an electric vehicle, it's range. So take my truck, a stated range of 300 miles. Okay, so you think you buy the truck, you can go 300 miles. Wrong. They're going to tell you you should probably only charge to 80 or 90% on a regular basis. Why would you do that? Well, that's to preserve the battery for long-term use. You want to keep the battery lasting longer, so you want to charge differently. But charge to 100% if you're on a road trip. Well, I mean, that's fine, but there's none of that complexity with a gas car, right? And to make it worse, every EV has a different charging recommendation. Some nowadays say charge to 100%. Some are 90, some are 80. I'm not sure if any exist at 70, but it's possible. So that is thing one of EV school being complicated. The second thing is the charging infrastructure. So Tesla's NACS, the North American Charging Standard, is the only one that's A, reliable, B, easy to use. And I say this not from just wondering or just watching other reviews, but from experience. We went to Disney one time in a Tesla we had. It wasn't easy, not nearly as easy as a gasoline vehicle, but it was doable. We could make the trip. We could make it happen. The chargers worked every time. You simply plugged them in, and it wasn't much more expensive than gasoline would have been. Now, take Electrify America, for example. 50 to 60 cents a kilowatt hour. They may or may not work. Some will be CCS. Some will require adapters. It's just overly complicated. So you essentially have to go to EV school for that to work. It's borderline nonsensical. Now, here's another issue with range, and I talk about it in my video, The Death of EVs. Will they be around in 10 years? I really don't think, other than Tesla and BYD, they will. Because every major manufacturer just seems to be kind of dabbling their toes in it. Nobody seems to want to simplify it. Nobody seems to want to actually make it better. It's a convoluted mess. So, other than range, the other thing you have to know is apps for charging. So you can use the PlugShare app. Sometimes you want the EVgo app. There used to be an app called a Better Route Planner. I think that was purchased by Rivian. You may use the OEM app. You may have to use the Ford app and the Tesla app if you want to charge at a Tesla charger. The only one that's really simple in the US that I have any experience with is the Tesla charging experience. It's the only one that wasn't a pain, always seemed to work. And actually, as I think about this, I remember going to a Tesla station once, and 3 or 4 of the chargers were out of commission. Now there were a dozen. There was nobody else there. It wasn't a major ordeal. And that does happen at gas pumps. Occasionally a pump won't work. But for the most part, we're asking consumers, and by we, I mean people who are interested in electric vehicles, to go to school and relearn everything they know about an automobile. Now, are there advantages to EVs? Of course there are. I wouldn't drive one if I didn't think there were. Cheaper operating cost. Here with Jackson EMC, we pay 8.81 cents a kilowatt hour for most of the year. We have solar on top of that, so it lowers the cost to drive to roughly 2 to 3 cents per mile, give or take. It is cheaper than gasoline if you can charge at home. So there are advantages. There's a single-speed transmission. It is markedly smoother than even most luxury cars. Even the nicest S-Class or BMW 7 Series, you can feel the shift. You don't feel that in a single-speed transmission because there is no shift. Instantaneous power, that's an advantage. So you can get around cheaply, instantaneous power. Obviously, there's no emotion involved. And a good example of the fact that EVs lacking emotion isn't being an issue is the CEO of Rimac, the fastest car in the world, the Nevera, just came out. He's also the CEO of Bugatti now, and came out with a new Bugatti and left it as a V16. So with all the EV tech in the world, he recognized there's always going to be a place for the internal combustion engine. As long as I believe we live the next 50, 100, maybe 150 years, possibly forever with the use of the synthetic fuel, it's just a simpler solution. And EVs don't look to be getting any simpler. But what about the carbon thing, right? Well, an article in the Harvard Gazette recently said carbon neutrality as of 2023 for an EV versus a traditional vehicle is somewhere between 28,000 and 63,000 miles. And that's assuming the original owner keeps the vehicle. The problem with that is people don't keep their vehicles that long. They trade them. They go back to a gasoline car. So if you don't drive much, even this individual at the Harvard Gazette came up with, it's probably better for you as a consumer, even for the environment, to drive a traditional internal combustion engine. So EV school is the issue. EV school is not the only issue, but the fact that it has to exist is an issue. And it's an issue I don't see getting solved. I've thought a lot about this. There was a lot of comments, a lot of controversy in my last video. People don't really like to look at facts. For whatever reason, the only guy successful at getting people to look at facts and not have an emotional response is Joe Rogan. People can look at facts, they can listen to Joe and the expert, and for the most part, they'll either learn something or not get angry. Now, again, am I an EV hater? No, I'm not an EV hater. I drive an EV. Will I drive an EV forever? Probably not. I'll probably go back to something with some raw emotion. I miss having a V8. At some point, I'll probably do that. I don't know when. And then in the future, I may again get an EV as a commuter. They're great for commuting. They're great for if you have a predictable commute and you want your vehicle to be essentially a emotionless appliance. It works great for that. And if you like tech and that's your main draw, then Tesla's as good as it gets. I mean, it's got fart mode. It's got really nice built-in user interface. It's not as easy to use as CarPlay, in my opinion, but it's nice and it works well. So, other things to do with EV school. Learning what range is. It's different if you're towing. It's different if it's really cold outside. It's different if it's really hot outside. You need to know and understand all these things before you embark on a road trip in an EV. It's a lot to learn, right? Charging infrastructure. You need to know what type of charger you need. You need to know where they are. You need to frequently check the PlugShare app to see if they're available. All of these things matter. How much should you charge your battery on a regular basis? 70, 80%, 90%, 100%? Do you need to go in the settings every time you do it? You need to know that. You need to know that if you plan to keep the EV for a long time. Now, if you're just going to keep it 10,000 miles in a year, you're probably just going to charge to 100%. You're going to do what's convenient for you. And you're probably going to destroy the long-term life of the battery. That's going to matter for the next consumer and the next consumer. So there's so many things that factor into this. Home charging. Can you live with a 110? Do you need a dedicated 220? Do you need larger than a dedicated 220? My Ford Lightning comes with an 80 amp charger. That's a very large breaker. Most people don't have room in their box, I'm willing to venture, for that, and are not pre-wired in any way. So that cost in today's world could be $2,500 to $3,000 simply to get it installed, even if Ford gives it to you with the truck. There are just a lot of things you need to know. Now, what do you need to know with a gasoline vehicle? You need to know how to get to a gas station. You need to know how to get an oil change every 3, 5, or 7,000 miles. You need to somewhat know how to monitor your coolant. But a lot of those things, ironically, the technology in a gasoline vehicle will tell you. They'll tell you if the coolant's low. They'll tell you if you need your oil change. Nowadays, they'll send you an email and remind you. So it's just markedly simple to drive a gasoline vehicle. So my wife went from her Rivian back to a Suburban. Now, why make this video? Because people need to know that EV school exists. Now, if you're an aficionado, if you believe you're saving the planet, you're Probably incorrect unless you drive 100,000 miles a year. But if you believe that that matters, if climate change is something that's important to you and you want to drive an EV, before you get one, you need to go to EV school. And should EV school exist? Maybe I'll do a series. I don't know. Drop it below in the comments. Let me know if you think I should do a series explaining what EV school would be, from range, from charging to all the other little things. Anyway, so just a quick video about EV school, because I feel like anytime someone asks me about an EV, I'm taking them to a temporary EV school. There are no simple answers. It's a complex question, no matter if it's regarding range, charging infrastructure, battery life, all the above. So this is Bo. This is the Man Review. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm right or wrong, and try to keep it civil. I'm out.